my name's Paul Wellen, and I'm Charlotte's husband. I don't teach at Murray. I teach at a local college. I teach psychology. But I'm here to talk about Murray, and I just want to say one brief word. Listening to everyone here, listening to all these students, you probably think, oh, well, Murray just works this way because all the people there are very nice, and all the students are very nice and well-spoken, which is true enough. But what is really true about Murray is that it relies on choice theory. This idea that each student participates in decisions about their own education, about their own method of learning. They mediate with everyone. They learn how to get along with everyone and to realize that first principle that Brian put up on the board, I can't control anyone's behavior. So these students all know they can't control everyone's behavior, anyone's behavior. They can't control the teacher. The teachers know they can't control their own principal or they can't control the other students. And once they start with that realization, then it's that upon which they build all these relationships. Without that foundation, it doesn't work. And I'll leave you with just a little story. It's a piece of research that's very interesting. Probably most of us are trained in this idea that lead management, or which is a Glasser term, people are led or are told that they must obey the authority. And we think this is inherent in nature. They did a study on deer where they thought, well, there must be an alpha male deer who leads everyone and tells them which way to go. Like if they have to make a choice between water holes, there are 3 water holes, they just follow the lead deer. And this is how we sort of organize our society. We have the lead deer, and we have the boss, and everyone goes where the boss tells them to go. But they actually did a study, and they discovered that if you have 3 deer holes, and there are all these deer walking along, the so-called alpha male deer is actually in the back somewhere, not doing anything, not really paying attention. And it turned out to be very democratic. If you had 100 deer, say, when they got to about 33 started moving toward hole number 1, they would all start to gravitate in that direction. And the conclusion they found out is that deer operate democratically. So I guess the conclusion of this is if deer can decide democratically where to go and how to organize their own lives, then why shouldn't students, why shouldn't young men and women who are being educated have input and control the direction that they're going into? The teacher, I wouldn't want to say actually just follows wherever the student goes, but the teacher helps them organize the project that they want to do to help them get there, and that's the basis upon which Murray is built, I would say.
A Murray parent came with us, and she didn't want to sit up here with us, but I told her I was going to put her on the spot anyway. Would you talk a little bit about your experience as a Murray parent?
Well, unfortunately, I am
This is Karen.
That's my mom. She's the one who didn't want me to go to Murray.
You're kidding, no way. I've heard bad things about it, mostly from her older brothers. And so she really was having a hard time in school, and she was falling behind in math, and she really didn't get the support from her teachers. So out of desperation, I went to the meeting, and I was just overwhelmed. Everybody was so nice and so welcoming, and I was kind of assured that she would succeed, and she really has. So I think it's been a real positive experience. She's viewed as an individual, and everyone's there to support her and help her if she's falling behind in something. It's been wonderful. And she has friends.
For a minute about, because I think just about every person has mentioned an attitude which I think is an external control theory world attitude about kids, that the bad kids go to Murray. You know, we would never even consider there's such a thing as a bad kid. What does that mean? That's a very blaming, that's one of those red behaviors. Glasser says those disconnecting behaviors where a teacher or other students have looked at someone having trouble in a school and said, you're the bad kid. You're the one who's, causing all these problems. What's your issue, kid? Shape up. It's that condemning, kind of critical way we have of trying to manipulate each other's behavior. And so a lot of people, I ran into this constantly as a teacher, especially when we first started Murray. Now everyone knows they better not say that around me because they're going to get a little lecture. But I would go to faculty meetings of teachers from all over the county, and they would say, how can you stand to be at that school with those kids? And I would say, what are you talking about? These are the best kids in the county. Thank you for sending us these kids. These are the most brilliant, creative, amazing people. And as soon as they get in an environment that realizes that, they take off. And so I'm in this wonderful position of getting to watch people who sometimes come in with their hair like this and they're sitting over their desk like this. And for a year, like I just got an email a couple of nights ago from a student who is at Wellesley, which is one of the #1 schools in the world, and she came to Murray like that. She sat with her hair over her face for a year. And I was always teaching like this, hi, how you doing? Because I couldn't see under the hair, and I was inserting myself a little bit. And she wouldn't do anything. She didn't turn work in, she just was kind of listening. And so we didn't just like let her sit there. We were constantly trying to interact and invite her to do things and try to help her participate. And at the end of the first year, her parents had this serious conference with me, and they said, Charlotte, you have not gotten this girl to do anything this year but read Stephen King. You know, this is a brilliant kid. She was gifted, labeled gifted and everything throughout her career until she got to high school. You know, she needs something different. And I said, well, can you get her to read something besides Stephen King? Because I'm really glad she's reading Stephen King. I mean, right now, she and I are beginning to talk about Stephen King. She read The Stand, which is like, you know, 1 million pages long, and I read it with her. And so we're talking about all the issues in Stephen King, and that's a beginning. And they said, all right, all right. I said, just give her a little space. She's healing. She's looking us over. She's thinking, can I take a risk? Is it okay to open up a little bit here? What's going to happen? And when she came back the next year, she was one of those people that just took off. She began getting involved in Murray and reaching out to other people and helping everyone. And this year, she's transferring to MIT, which is another one of the really great school in the U.S. And she's going, this is something that I know was off the charts. She would never have believed she could ever do this. She was diagnosed bipolar. And that was one of the reasons that she was shut down when she was in 9th grade and she wouldn't go to school or anything, which is why she looked at Murray. But she's now been accepted to, and starting tomorrow, I think, yeah, tomorrow, she's going to go on something called A Year at Sea. So she's been training to get on a sailing ship, which is a research vessel with scientists, and she can't change clothes for like 6 weeks at a time, and she's in these cramped quarters, and she's doing all this amazing research with real scientists out there in the oceans, and she can't believe that she got selected to do that, and she's out there and getting ready to do it. And of course, they had to make sure that that bipolar wasn't going to keep her from, you know, she wasn't going to fall apart at the seams on the ship, and she's been able to show them how dramatically changed she is. So I don't think it has to do with Murray being a school for bad kids. I think it has to do with we believe somewhere out there on our planet that there are bad kids. And what does that mean about us for believing that? Question. So let me ask you guys a question, maybe a few of you can answer, and then we'd like to have some questions from the audience. None of you mentioned needing to earn at least a B. How does that affect you? Do you see that as oppressive? Is it helpful? What do you think? Jump in.
I'm a diabetic and I miss school kind of occasionally. This year it's actually been really good. I've been working really hard to stay in school. But last year I missed school a lot. I had a lot of personal issues and I missed so much school. So it was really hard for me to do every single piece of work that my teachers gave me to earn a B or better. But at our school, our teachers are so interested in helping us that I got every single piece of that work done. I missed months, basically, months of school, and I got every single thing done, and I left that year with 13 A's on my report card. And I don't know anywhere else that you could do that, needing a B or better. I got 13 A's and missed months of school, and still I got all of my work done. I just don't see how that could happen anywhere. It was amazing.
At my old school, I took Algebra 2 class in my 9th grade year, which is really advanced in math. And I was really good at math, but I didn't like it at all. And I slept through every class of that year. and I didn't do a single one of my homework assignments, and somehow I pulled a C. I guess I got really good grades on my tests, even though I wasn't doing anything, and my teacher sat me down and he goes, well, I'm sending you into calculus next year because I think you can handle it. But you're going to have to do homework. You're going to have to start caring. And I was like, well, nobody cares if I don't do it, so what does it matter? I mean, nobody said anything to me the whole year. I could sleep through class. Nobody would wake me up. And at Murray, you can't get away with that. Nobody would let me do that. And so in my math class, like, I did every single homework assignment, and I was involved in class all the time, and it just, like, is really different because people are, like, saying, you know, like, you need to do this. Like, you have to understand every material that we're going through. And, like, even if I got an A on the test, it doesn't matter because she's like, well, you need to get above and beyond this project we're doing, you know? Like, you need to do this and understand everything and be active in class. And so, like, it really makes a difference because somebody, like, cares that you get good grades and you understand everything.
Anybody else?
I'll say something.
Go ahead, Ed.
So, yeah, when I first got to Murray, it was like, I remember some of the students were like, yeah, it's really hard to fail here. So I'm thinking, yeah, that's pretty good. And then my eyes got really opened when I first went there, because if it was hard to fail, then what I didn't understand was that we would be working a lot. And so, like, math, I mentioned, wasn't my favorite subject. And I was redoing algebra, and I would get, like, you know, flustered with tests, and it's like, I don't really want to work with this. And it's like, but you kind of got a 70-something, so you kind of need to get it over the 80. So, like, as much as I hated it, I had to keep trying as much as I got sick of it. And that went for, like, everything. Like, even gym, I had to finish up. And you had to pass a certain amount of, like, your strength, your athletics, and all that. So if I didn't do too well on running a mile on a good time, I'd have to redo that again on one day. So that part was a little frustrating, but overall, it's worked pretty good, though.
Can I ask you a question? Put you on a choice theory spot. Did you have to do those things?
Oh yeah, well,
What
you
do you think
didn't.
about
No, you didn't really have to, but you needed to do it for your class if you want to pass. But I mean, you could choose not to. You just wouldn't, you know, get through that part of the class. Sometimes, like with I know we do alternative assignments for students who are really, really troubled with certain things. Like I mentioned earlier, I got super stressed out with my homework. If that was becoming too much of a problem, teachers will work with you and they'll like say, well, what about this? You know, and they'll sit by you and help you and get a problem solved, think of alternatives.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I think that one of the big issues is that people would think
You
that
have to stand up.
Yeah,
That's
stand up,
something
stand up.
Sorry.
here.
I think that one of the things is that people would imagine that getting a B was actually like a problem, but we actually want to do the work because we enjoy it, because we like it.
Yeah, and knowing that, like, no one is there making you do it, like, not feeling all the pressure from the teachers at base schools of, like, trying to force you, then that makes you motivated to, like, want to learn the material and get a good grade and, like, feel good about the work you've been doing in the class or, like, all together.
All right, have you got questions? I can throw more questions at them or get one. Yeah.
And would any of your students at any time be on drugs or in trouble with the law?
Great question. Anybody want to answer that? Go ahead. V, jump in. Would you stand up?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, sure. We have to abide by all the county rules when it comes to drugs or cigarettes or alcohol or whatever, even weapons or, you know, anything that applies to any of our base schools applies to us. So if a kid were caught with drugs, they would get the penalty that, you know, that any other school would get. You know, they get suspended or expelled or, you know, whatever they, you know, deserve. But, you know, we don't have that kind of problem at Murray. Like, it's just not something that really applies. Like, I don't think any kid at school has ever been caught with drugs or...
They
Well,
don't
I mean, it has.
Are you
It's
kidding?
happened.
It
but,
just
like,
happened. It just
Okay,
happened.
it's happened, but like it's not like a big issue. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
not-
like bullying. It's not. It happens, but it's not like.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not
It's
something
not
that
the end
shakes
of the
us.
world.
Yeah, I'll jump in too. We have, oh, yeah, I can stand up. We have plenty of students who arrive at Murray with drug issues and alcohol issues and violence issues. we would see that as their method of surviving a situation in their past that has not worked for them, often school, but also home lives. And so then when we get someone at Murray that has those issues, then our job is to try to help them figure out, you know, what are you going to do now that you have those issues and you're here in school? What are you going to do? You know, how are you going to manage that? And given what V just said about what the school, because we're a public school, paid for with public monies, we're not a private institution, we're going to be following all those same requirements of the state. So, and punishments, we don't do punishment, but the state does. So you might end up in the court system, or heaven knows, you know, and some students arrive in the court system. So how are you going to manage that? So we call it, the teachers call it handing the ball back to you. It's like, okay, so you have this issue, what are you going to do about it? You know, how can we help you? Because we're here, we can help you. One of the things students requested a few years ago was, you know, some of us are really worried about friends that have drug issues here. And if we tell you about it like this, well, and if we come and say, so-and-so's got a big drug problem outside of school, we're really worried about them, you have to go to the state, you know, organization, you have to go to the county, you have to go to the principal, you have to, you know, dot your I's and cross your T's that you have heard about this situation. You can't just privately help us. So we feel stuck. You know, this is one of the biggest issues in our lives, and the people we trust the most, we can't tell. Because if we tell, we get you in trouble and us in trouble. So who do we talk to about it? And as a staff, we thought that's a big issue, and that's a really important issue. And the kids care enough to say something to us about it, we should do something. So the teachers all looked at our instructional budgets, which are very small. But we gave, from English, we gave $1,000. All the teachers threw in $1,000, which meant we ended up, a lot of us, with less than $1,000 for a whole year for whatever we needed to purchase for the school. But we took those thousands of dollars and we went to the kids and we said, okay, we've set aside some money to hire someone, a psychologist or someone like that that you would trust, who's pretty good at dealing with drug issues, that would not have to report to us. They would come to school, you could see them at school, you could sign up in the office in a private way, like put your name in a little sign up box, and they would just call you up to the office so no one would know that you're going to see this person. Who do you recommend? Do any of you know anyone that we should hire instead of us just going out and trying to find somebody? You're the guys who are asking for this, what do you want? And a whole bunch of kids named the same person. And so we went out and asked her, would you come? She said, I'd be honored to come. And so she's been there 3 or 4 years, and we've never been tempted to try to get our money back so we could use it in other places, because she's just so valuable. This is Ellen, for those of you who don't know that we hired. Yeah, go ahead.
I see Ellen, the woman who was hired by the school, and I don't necessarily see her for drug issues, but I remember one time last year we had a student that was having a lot of drug problems, and Ellen had been seeing me for about half a year, I guess, and she knew that I had really gotten far with my personal issues, and so she set up a meeting with me and the student, and she just thought, you know, having student support, saying, you know, like me telling him and like helping him understand that like he could get a lot farther in his life if he wasn't abusing drugs and alcohol, would really, really help him. And so she just like does that kind of thing. Like if she doesn't think that an adult helping the person is going to make a change, then she, you know, saw somebody who was really doing well, and she set us up together, and I was really able to help him, you know, move forward with his life. And so it's just like Murray doesn't like claim to not have these issues. Everybody has them. We just go about solving them in a different way.
And you reminded me of another. We had a student last year who came to us already having 2 drug instances where he'd gone before the school board, and they had told him, if anything else with drugs happens, you're expelled from our schools forever. Okay, so he arrived with us with that background, and within the first week of school there was another drug issue, because he brought the habit with him and he was doing the same behaviors, and which is to be expected. And yet he had this thing hanging over him, and we were just beginning to feel like, okay, this is one of our students, we can help this person, and now he's going to be gone, expelled from school forever. So we get a phone call from his parents, who are hysterical. You know, they don't know what am I supposed to do with this kid you know, now the school's going to expel him. I don't have the money to send him to private school. I don't know what to do. I can't control his drug use. I begged him. You know, I mean, the parents were very upset. And so we met with the student, and we said, if we as the faculty go up to the school board for you, why should we? I mean, what's in it for us and for our school? I mean, do you want us to? Do you really want to be in school? Because we're getting mixed messages. On the one hand, you applied to come here as if you really wanted an education. On the other hand, you're still doing the drug stuff, and they told you up front they were going to expel you, so maybe you don't want an education. I mean, what do you want? And he sat there and he burst into tears, and he said, I want an education. I have this issue with this, and I can't talk to anybody about it, and I'm always hiding it, and I don't know, I feel like I've got myself in so much trouble now, there's no way out. And we said, well, we will write up a plan with you in which we go to the school board and request that they do a kind of reparation where you can take ownership of some of this behavior and make a plan to make it better. Like maybe an outreach, do an outreach to other students and things like that. Would you be willing to do that? And he said, I don't know, I've never done anything like that before. And we said, well, if we write it down and we say we're going to do it, we'll help you do it. And he said, okay, I'll try. And so for the very first time, the school board backed up from their decision to expel someone. Don't worry, it happens to everyone. And he went before them and he made a plan as to exactly what he was going to do. And all year, it was very difficult. We were with him the whole year, constantly working with him. He was staying after school, he was churning out work, and there were 2 or 3 teachers. I was on that team, and we were like right there with him. I'm sure he looked at us as kind of hell and a blessing at the same time, because we're always asking him, how's it working, what's next, what needs to be turned in, just helping him. But he's here this year, and he has had no more drug issues, and he goes through random drug testing, and it's really working well for him, and he's starting to get all his credits now and get complete. So it was a way of taking a very bad situation and reorganizing it, trying to help the powers that be look at him not as a bad kid. I mean, that's why they wanted to expel him. He was a bad kid. He'd already proven twice he couldn't handle it. Let's get rid of him. I mean, that's where they
I
were.
think there was another question out here somewhere.
No questions? Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm getting a hang of it and how it's going, and so you go into this institution that is working this way, and it's great. I'm just thinking, I'm asking the students, if you went back to your old schools and took, I don't know, 1 or 2 like central ideas and tried to transform that old school, you know, could it be done, and what would it be? What would you tell them?
I mean, I don't think that I could transform the whole school, like just me or anything, but I definitely have taken what I've learned at Murray to my outside life, not like back to my other school, because I'm like hardly friends with any of the people that I used to know there, and I would never even think about going back there for an education. But I definitely do use what like I know about choice theory and everything in my
Would you give
life.
an example?
Like just situations like disagreements or anything. I used to, like in middle school and in 9th grade when I went to Albemarle, I would just like automatically freak out and get really defensive. And now like when someone like disagrees or gets like upset about something, I'm like, all right, Melissa, just take a deep breath and talk to this person. Don't like start screaming and getting in a fight. Like I know how to like relax myself, I guess.
But it's kind of difficult to go back to your old school, because I'm still friends with a few people from my base school, and they look at you very differently. At least in my opinion, they do, because they're always expecting me to say the complete opposite of how they're feeling. It's like one of my friends has, she's a Democrat and I'm a Republican. And, I mean, that's how most of you all are next to me. But she's very, like, defensive about everything she says. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying. I understand. I'm taking it in. I'm listening to you. And I respect how you feel. But she doesn't see it like that. Like, she's still like, you can't understand. You would be on my side then. And I'm like, no, it's not like that. I can understand. I can hear you. And I've gotten that from Murray. I can listen to all of you people, and I can understand what you're saying. I just might not change my mind, you know? And that's how everybody is. Also, one of my friends came over to my house, and Melissa and Meg were there, and we straight out had a fight, and we straight out had a mediation in front of my friend. And she was like, what are you guys doing? So So yeah, I mean, it's common that you use stuff from school, and she like understands it now, so it's helpful.
I think at my old school, if we even tried to do anything like Murray, we'd have to have a full year of just like mediations and community building and like taking retreats and just like not even going to class, like just dealing with each other. Because I mean, I can be honest and say that there were times at Murray where I was like a complete mess, couldn't go to class all day because of what I had experienced at my old school. Even taken out of the situation, it was so scarring to me that I couldn't function. You know, like, imagine how many other kids were dealing with that, and Murray not being in the district had nowhere to go. For years, they were dealing with what I dealt with for 1 year, and it just broke me down. And so I think, you know, the thing with Murray is that there's so little students that we can actually like come together and really make a difference. But with thousands of kids, I mean, I can't imagine the amount of healing you'd have to do. It's just like takes a lot, and just having to go in and just like mediate and have everybody agree that like they want to be there, they want to learn, they want to make a difference in their lives. You know, it takes a lot of effort from the students, just like even agreeing that they are gonna put that effort in.
That said, I mean, I agree with you that it would be a huge effort, but it would be worth it. You know, I worked very closely, and if you come to one of the later workshops, I'll talk more in detail about that. But a principal from a school in San Antonio, Texas, contacted me because he was interested in starting a Glasser Quality School, and he had just received principalship of a school that had not been built yet. So he was 2 years in advance of actually opening the doors. And he was certified from the Glasser Institute, so he'd gone through the first 5 levels of training, he'd done his cert week. And he had been using these techniques as a principal or assistant principal, which I'm sure is why he got the job, because he was very successful at it. He said, Charlotte, I know exactly how to start a school, just like the 7 other schools in our district that already exist, that have 4,000 kids in them, and we had to hire a private police force just for the high schools, because the regular police said we cannot deal with all the problems that are happening in those 7 high schools every day. So we had to hire a private police force because we had gangs, we had apathy, we had 50% of the kids were dropping out, we had every issue you can think of going on there. And he said, I know how to start a school like that. We've done it 7 times. We've done it beautifully 7 different times in just this one area of San Antonio. I don't want number 8. I want a different kind of school. So he was in a perfect position to try that because he was going to hire a brand new staff. So that has something to do with your question. You know, if you have staff members that say this is all a bunch of malarkey and being nice to each other isn't going to change the school, then that's an uphill climb. You need to make that uphill climb, and it's a long uphill climb. But we've certainly had staff members at Murray who said that, you know, who came in at the beginning and said, you know, kid, I'm the teacher, they're the kid, and they will do what I say. I mean, it's hard to drop that because we're all raised with that. I mean, I was raised with that. So it's difficult to let go of that and give the power back to the kids and trust that it's going to be done well. You know, when I first came to Murray, when we first opened the doors, I was at Albemarle High School for 2 years teaching, and when they heard I was going to go to a new school that was, quote, for the bad kids, they gave me, as a going away present, a joke, you know, at a meeting, a baseball bat with a red ribbon on it. They said, you're going to need this, right? I mean, that was the attitude we had to come past. But I don't believe Murray is succeeding just because we're little. And I would urge you to get in touch with the principal at Stevens High School, and all that info is in a CD that I've got for you here that you can take a look at and talk to him. They have not declared themselves a quality school yet. They're looking about 10 years from now. But they have begun to put all these ideas into place. We had other questions over here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious on the
Oh, I'm
process.
sorry.
Just building on the same question, and you're probably answering it further to speak there, but you know, how do you start with your staff? How do you start working with your community, your school community, to introduce this? And I guess you said maybe years, it's going to take years, but how do you initiate that? How do how do you go about that?
Well, let me ask you guys, if we wanted to start something new at Murray, how would we go about doing that? Yeah.
Community
meeting.
What's a community meeting? Talk about that if you would, Dee.
Community meeting is basically all the students get together in a gym.
Would you stand up, please?
Oh, okay. Get together in the gym, and I mean, anything that we have them pretty much, if not weekly, we have them at least twice a month, if we can manage it. And teachers bring up any sort of issues or any sort of announcements that they want to make, and then we have something called open mic where we can all the students pass around the mic and they can say anything that's on their mind, any issues that's bothering them, or just debate whether it's pronounced Fanta or Fanta.
Yeah. Big debate.
Yeah, it's a big thing going on actually right now, and I don't know why, but it is. And that's a great thing about Murray that I really like. And so if there was an issue that wanted to be solved, basically, like we recently had an issue with lunch, which basically we have 2 different restaurants that sell sandwiches that we get during lunch, and some students wanted one and some students wanted the other, so we held a vote, like a vote between the whole school. Do you want Jimmy John's or do you want Breadworks? So,
And what did we end up with?
we ended up with a compromise because, I mean, Breadworks won, but only by like a few votes, and it was basically split half and half. So we compromised. We were going to do Breadworks for like 1 month and then Jimmy John's for another month or a semester or something like that. And we're going to alternate, and that's, if we can't come to a vote or to like, we can't like make it so everybody agrees, then we try to compromise, and that's a great thing. So.
I think what you're really asking is how do you get the choice ideas introduced to people who don't know them, right? And I've heard a lot of you discuss how the new class, which is larger than we've usually had, doesn't really get choice theory yet. So could some of you say how some of the new students, when they come in, who know nothing about choice theory, actually gradually start to learn it? Or maybe how you, and you didn't know it. Yeah.
Stand up.
Well, in the beginning, a lot of students don't seem to understand what they're getting into, and what they're getting into exactly. But what you have to do is, we all go to workshops in the beginning of the year. Like the first week of school, we all have workshops, and the new students go to workshops that we're all really used to, so they can see like how we work, and they go over PowerPoints with Ms. Wellen, and they discuss what they want or what they need or how to get to it. And the thing is that the new students, they understand why they're going there because they need a different atmosphere and they need more support. So you just have to explain to the students that we're there for that reason. We're willing to give you support and that they can come to us with whatever they need. At first, students don't understand that, the new students. I know I didn't. I was really quiet and I wouldn't talk to anybody, and I thought that talking to them meant I had a problem, which isn't true. It meant that I needed help. And all the students, the new students, just need to realize that we're there to help them. And most of them have now. And everybody's getting along really well now. So that's mine.
And I'd also like to answer that question because I'm glad that they brought up community meetings, because I think staff in most schools are not treated with respect either. I don't know what it's like in Ireland, but in America, in most schools, teachers aren't asked, how do you think we should run the school? Teachers aren't asked that question. They are told, you know, here's the principal, they make the big decisions, and you come to a meeting once a month and you kind of do what, you need to be a team player, you need to do whatever you're supposed to do in the building. You don't really get a chance to say, I have an idea to reorganize this whole school, how would I get that out there? You don't get a chance to do that. And if you raise a hand and try to say that, it's often perceived as critical or not being a team player. And so a lot of teachers just be quiet and shut their doors and do whatever they're going to do in their classrooms, and there isn't a sense of community among the staff. So I would say that's number one on your list, is to help the staff have a good sense of community where they can say things and feel trusted and feel like they're not going to get some note by some principal in their file, or they're not going to be seen as aggressive for suggesting an idea, that they are welcomed. Ideas are welcomed, disagreements are welcomed, it's part of the process. It's hopeful that the school can change because the teachers are willing. And if you have a lot of teachers that aren't open to these ideas, then what we would do and what we do at Murray is we start with a small group. Like if there are 3 or 4 in your school that say, this sounds neat, I'd like to give it a try, then you try to help them set up something where they could give it a try. And then other teachers, I took these ideas with me when Paul got his PhD. Our career had been teaching overseas, and we had taught in lots of schools around the world. And so when he finished his PhD, I was 3 years into Murray, and I didn't want to go. But I had agreed that as part of our lives, we're going to teach overseas. So I kind of dragged myself away and went overseas again. But I took these ideas with me because they were part of me now. And when I got to the big schools overseas, international schools, I was the only one with these ideas. And I found that if I talked about them, teachers were like, this is stupid, that'll never work. But if I just did them in my classroom, what began to happen is parents went to the principal and said, why do my kids get treated like this in Miss Welland's class, but not in all the other classes? I mean, how come it's okay here, which my kid loves this is great, it's working well, why isn't it okay there? And so a little parent pressure got put in the mix too. You know, this is working really well, can we expand it a little bit? So it's very gradual. You know, I think it can't be, from the top down, we're going to become a quality school. I mean, that's counterproductive. That's boss management of a lead management system. That wouldn't work. Yeah.
Could I, as a staff member, just voice my opinion? I think it's coffee time.
Yes.
Will we be back at 20 past? Is that all right? Please.
Thank you very much.